Hi, Mike Henderson here again with part 6, I think, of this series of videos on using novel factory to write a novel. Now we have we have created little scene synopses, and you can give this a chapter heading if you want. You know, you can call it chapter 1 or whatever. Now, I want to talk about this part over here. Before we go much farther, we have to understand what a scene is, which means we have to understand what type of scene we're looking at here. Here they call it a head scene, an incident, and a tail scene. I'll tell you the source of this. This is from a book by a man named Dwight Swain called Techniques of the Selling Writer. And he says that a story is divided into scenes and sequels. A scene has the character goes into it with a goal. There is some kind of conflict, and then there is a disaster. I don't have a problem with goal and conflict. Disaster, I have a problem with that terminology because it's not really disaster necessarily. I mean, it could be, but it's really an outcome which is not exactly what the main character wanted. That is the head scene. A head scene is followed by a tail scene, which Dwight Swain calls a sequel. Now, I find scene and sequel to be a little bit confusing. Head and tail is maybe a better way to describe it, because what it implies is that the head must be followed by the tail. If you have a head, you've got a tail. So whereas the head has a goal, conflict, and disaster, the tail has a reaction, and this reaction is to the outcome of the previous head. There's a dilemma. What do I do next? And then there's a decision, how to proceed. These two are what all stories are made up of. And if you hit the little question mark, it talks about head scenes and tail scenes, and it gives you, it talks about Dwight Swain here, by the way, so you know that I didn't just make that up. Scenes and sequels, and it goes into that and discusses it. And repeat, right? That is what stories are made up of. If you look at it, if you watch a movie, you will always see it, where the character goes into the scene with a goal. He wants to do something. And it's an important point. Everything must move the story forward. This is one of the great advantages to this software, which is it forces you to go through these little planning exercises, thinking about your story is really all it is. So writing these synopses is just saying, well, let me just sit down quick and write. It's almost like, let's write the story. And this is where you summarize it. You're not putting in the detail like dialogue and such, but you are saying, well, here's what happens. You know, a guy goes in here and he does this and that, and this is the bad guy fights him, and then there's a battle, and everything is okay. And you sort of summarize how this all is laid out, and the 3-act structure that they have helps you immensely with that. And then when you're doing your scenes, they sort of have you think about heads and tails, and also incidents. Now, it says scenes that aren't heads or tails. You may really need a scene where your character sets out to do something and achieves it, or something similar which doesn't fit into the structure above. That's fine. you can insert supporting scenes or incidents in where the supportive worded, but incidents where you need them. Just try to avoid having too many, or you may find that your story has lost the plot. So there may be a time when you need to insert a piece of information or whatever that technically is not a scene. So I don't know why I'm going to exit. It goes over there. So if you want, now sometimes it's not blatantly obvious, but what's Jim Lane's? Let's go. This would be the first scene, so it's pretty much got to be a head scene. What's his goal? His goal is to get his cargo to where it has to be. So he's driving a cargo ship. What's the conflict? Is that that's why it doesn't necessarily work where what I have broken down will be broken into a scene. So what is the conflict? Is the hyperdrive fails. The disaster is he slows. Okay, well the conflict is the hyperdrive fails and he learns he's got to do a spacewalk. And he hates spacewalks. Well, let's say that's the. Actually, we can make that the disaster, right? So as you see as you go along, you kind of figure out what this is going to be. So he learns he's got to do spacewalk, and he copy. Let's cut it, and we'll put it down here. I think. Come on. So he learns he's got to do spacewalk, and he hates spacewalks. So this is a disaster. He's just riding along, mind his own beeswax. The thing fails, and then he's got to do a spacewalk. Okay, so this is kind of the first scene. And then, okay. Or you can, actually, we'll go back. All right, so we end up here. And then, well, if we go back here, let's expand this again. And we hopefully will live long enough to load this thing. It's probably my computer. I don't know. If you've got this, you can do what I did, or you can just go to the next scene. And then it goes through this rigmarole again. And so once it loads this up, we're going to continue with the next installment.